When we talk about finding the midpoint, what we mean is that you've got 2 points, and if you imagine them with a line drawn between them, there's going to be some point in the middle. Let's call it M for midpoint, such that this distance here is the same as this distance, here. So it's halfway between A and B. Okay, so that's what we mean by the midpoint. Now, if I want to find that midpoint, I can simply take the average of the x values to find the x coordinate and the average of the y values to find the y coordinate. Okay, so remember, a simple average means is if I have two numbers, let's say we've got 10 and 20. If I take the average of those two numbers, I'm saying 10 plus 20 divided by 2. So that's 30 divided by 2. So that's 15. So 15 then would be the number that's exactly halfway between 10 and 20. So that's what I mean by taking the average. So if I wanted to find the x-coordinate that's exactly halfway between the x-coordinate -5 and the x-coordinate 3, I'm going to take an average. I'm going to say 3 plus -5 divided by 2. 3 plus -5 is the same thing as 3 minus 5. That's -2 divided by 2. So that's -1. So my x-coordinate is going to be -1. So my picture's a little bit off. All right. Now, if I want to find the y-coordinate, so this is my x-coordinate. If I wanted to find the y-coordinate, I would take the average of the y-coordinates. So I've got -2, and it doesn't really matter what order you do it in. All right, so I can say -2 plus 4 divided by 2. So that's -2 plus 4 is 2 divided by 2, so that's 1. All right, so my y-coordinate is 1. So that's my midpoint between A and B, and I did that by just thinking about those as averages. Once again, I don't like to use formulas too much for midpoint either, because I find that students try to think too hard and they end up getting the sign wrong. So think about it as an average. Now, what if you were talking about no picture, like you just have these two right here? Okay, no picture. You're not even picturing it in your mind. All right, but I want to find the midpoint. So I'm going to take the average of the x's. That's going to be my x-coordinate, and the average of the y's, and that's going to be my y-coordinate, right? So that's -1, and then once again 1, right? Now sometimes what you've got is let's say I'm given my A, let's draw a little line here. I'm given my A and my M. So for instance, let's say I've got -5, -2. All right, and let's say I've got unknowns here. I don't know what B is, and I've got -1, 1. All right, so I'm going to do it the same way. I'm going to say my x-coordinate is going to be the average of -5 plus x divided by 2. All right, so I've got the average of the x values. I don't know one of them, though. Okay, so that's my x-coordinate. All right, what I do know, though, is that the average has to be the midpoint x value, and I'm given that right here. So the average of this and this must be this. So add them up, negative 5 plus x divided by 2 equals negative 1. Alright, so I'm going to solve for that x. So let's multiply both sides by 2. So I've got negative 5 plus x is equal to negative 2. So that means x has got to equal to, add 5, x is equal to 3. Right? So 3. Alright, so now let's do the y's. So if I'm going to figure out my y value that's unknown, this value right here, I'm going to take the average in the y values, negative 2 plus unknown y, divide by 2, and I do know that it has to equal 1, because I'm given that. Alright, so we're going to clear that 2, multiply both sides by 2. So I've got negative 2 plus y is equal to 2. Y is equal to 4. Right? So we're just talking about averages here. So no matter what you do, when you're working with midpoint, you're talking about taking the average of the x-coordinates and the average of the y-coordinates to establish your unknown point. Okay? And so you can do that if the midpoint is unknown, in which case right here you've got numbers, here x, here y, or in this case you've got one number and one unknown that you're adding together, take the average. But what you do know is that you've already been given what the value of the x-coordinate of the midpoint is and the value of the y-coordinate of the midpoint. So either way, we're solving these with averages.